Hey, welcome to the Create a Life That Is Beautiful podcast. I'm your host, Leticia Ringe, and this is the space to be for high vibe people looking to create a beautiful life and business. Let's do this. Welcome back to the podcast, my beautiful friends. I am Leticia Ringe, your host, and today I am so excited. This is just before Christmas when this episode comes out, and so today I'm so excited to expand on our previous episode, episode 75, where I took you through our year in review and how to create and feel into an inspiring vision for 2020. Today on this episode, I have with me the beautiful Ella Ryder. And if you're not familiar with who Ella Ryder is, she is the woman behind the scenes of this podcast, my Make a Difference Soul Tribe community, and my beautiful business. She is my online business manager, and I've had Ella on episode 61 and episodes 71 of the podcast before. So if you want to know more about Ella, go back and listen to those episodes. Ella is a life coach, YouTuber, blogger, and podcaster based in London. She also happens to be one of my incredible clients, and I'm so excited to be diving into this conversation with you all because I've asked Ella to put together a series of questions, and so we're diving into both of our years in review and also what we're excited for in 2020. So we cover so many interesting topics, so many of the behind the scenes of my life and also Ella's that you just won't hear anywhere else. So many takeaways for business, but then also personally, our lives in general and as a whole. We cover some really deep topics in this episode. I know that 2019 has been a really transformative year for so many of us, and we're only really getting our head above the ground now. So there's also been a lot of challenges and struggles, and that's certainly been the case for both Ella and I. And so we talk about these struggles and we talk about also some of the lessons that we've learned, and as well as some fun questions thrown in the mix. So I'm really excited to share this episode with you all as a special end of year celebration, and I'm excited for you also to consider these questions for yourself. And I'd love to hear what your answers are or some of your takeaways over on Instagram at Leticia Ringe, and also tag Ella at ella.ryder. And let's bring 2019 to a close with awareness, appreciation, and celebration of all that is, all that has been, and all that is to come. Enjoy the episode, my friends. Hey Ella, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be back on here with you.
I know, I should say welcome back to the podcast because you've been on this is your third time?
Yeah, it's my third time. I've got more questions still more to ask.
Love it. So we're going to do something a little bit different here today. We've done this in a previous episode, which I can't remember the actual number, but I will link it in the show notes for today's episode. Ella's coming on and she is going to turn the tables and interview me, although it will be more of a discussion because that's how we roll.
We do love a good chat when the signal's working well.
Chat. Yes. All right. So Ella, should we just dive straight into it?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Okay. Oh, well, actually, do you want to first tell them about the theme of this conversation?
So it's kind of an end of year review almost, because in your I'm guessing the last episode have already aired. So that will be end of year review, looking back over your year and see how it's gone. And I want to kind of just sum everything up and kind of condense it so people can see where you're at, what you learn, all these kinds of things, and just have a little insight into how your year looked and maybe the things that don't necessarily get shown on social media. So a bit of an inside view into running a business.
Okay, I love that. All right, so let's kick it off with your first question.
Okay, so first of all, I'd like to know what your business highlight of the year is.
Oh my gosh. Okay, it's hard to pick one, but if I had to pick just one, it would be doing the keynote in July, the keynote speech for my coaching academy, the Beautiful You Coaching Academy in London. It was all about confidence. And the reason that this is a business highlight for me is because as I've mentioned on previous episodes of the podcast, I have a fear of public speaking, and this was pretty huge because I graduated from my coaching academy at that stage just over a year ago, and I was asked to be one of the 3 speakers in the Inspiration Day that they were having. So there were 60 coaches, some of which were graduating that day, and others just all of our like Europe, London, UK based people, because my coaching academy is, a lot of the events are in Melbourne, but they do ones like all over so this was the first one they'd had in London, I think, ever, but I might be wrong on that. So it was a really huge event, and I have a real fear of speaking on stage in particular, which was actually why I started this podcast. So actually getting up and speaking to a room full of people in front of also like my peers and colleagues and for my coaching school was a huge deal for me. So I've got to say that's the number one.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge achievement, and even I'd forgotten that you did that. Like, you do forget these massive turning points in our lives that you kind of, it's really interesting. And also that will be a fear of mine, I think, talking on stage. So it's good to see that it is overcomable. More speaking next year, is that on the cards?
Yeah, potentially it is on the cards to do more speaking next year. But as we'll probably chat about through this conversation, I am releasing more and more my mind's desire to know about and to plan what I'm doing. So if it's something that I'm meant to be doing, I have no doubt that opportunities will present themselves, just like that talk with the Beautiful You Coaching Academy. I got the message out of the blue. Actually, that morning I'd just been doing a meditation, and I was asking my self, is speaking something that's on the cards for me, or is doing video? And then I released it and was like, maybe, I'm just going to release this. Maybe it's not on the cards for me and I shouldn't pursue it. And then I had an email that morning in my inbox inviting me to be a speaker.
Yeah, if that's not a sign, I don't know what is.
Yeah, but also I've got to mention that, of course, there's been so many other highlights in my business this year because it has been a huge focus of my life. I've been very focused and committed, and have been up-leveling in big ways as I rolled out all of my business offerings like Create Your Beautiful Biz and my one-to-one holistic business coaching program and the Mistress Mind and Activated. And I ran a number of scholarships, and I've done so many trainings. So all of these things have also been a huge highlight for me in 2019. And of course, I also won the award at the beginning of the year of Emerging Coach of 2018 to 19, which was super special. So there's been lots of highlights, but that personal feat of getting up on stage was the number one. What about you, Ella?
So my business highlight of the year, I think, would be either starting a podcast, which I did during the Create a Beautiful Business. That one, I think it was a Mistress Mind. When I was doing that program with you, it kind of gave me the kickstart I needed to start my podcast. And yeah, I really enjoyed recording it, and it got me over my fear of, I never really loved my voice, hearing my voice being recorded. So it kind of helped with that. And I just really enjoyed having a chat with people and talking about topics that I found really interesting. And yeah, it's something that I'm not sure where I'm going with it at the moment, so I need to have a little review for myself. But yeah, I really enjoyed that challenge, and I never thought I'd actually put it out there and get it finished and even know how to. So that was a really big achievement for me. And then also doing my life coaching course. So I actually committed to a course and completed it in September of this year. So even that, when I was writing down the things that I'd done this year, I nearly forgot about it. I was like, oh my God, I did this too. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with those. And I feel like I'm going in the right direction.
Yeah. Oh, there's two huge things, starting a podcast and also doing. It's not even just like the completing of the coaching course. It's actually everything you had to do to be able to complete that. So that's absolutely huge. And it's also just amazing how much we forget unless we go back and review like our calendar and our photos. And even I was thinking just before reviewing like your Audible, all of the books that you read, like what has been a significant influence on you for the year. That also sparks some memories.
Yeah, definitely. And I've been using my Instagram archive as well to see like, this is what I was doing this time and that type of thing. And it's really interesting to compare.
Love that.
So I'd also love to know what your personal highlight of the year is, so not related to business, just whether it's relationships or living situations.
Yep. So again, there's been lots of change in my personal life this year with my move from London to Sydney and now Cambodia and who knows where next. But there's two things that I want to mention here. The first is my mum visited me in London by herself in the end of January / early February this year, and Lou was away during that time, so it was just my mum and I over in London, and I really cherished that moment those moments because I've never had an experience like that before, and it was so special, and it just makes me, every time I think about it, I just feel so grateful for that experience with my mum. So it's definitely one of my highlights because I will never, ever be in a situation where I'll probably be living in London again in that way and have my mum there without Lou and just us two living in my apartment. So that was really special.
That time with people that you love, and I think it's so you can't put a price on it, really.
Absolutely. And the second personal highlight for me, even though it's been very difficult, has been releasing a lot of old crap from like my childhood and teenage years and family baggage. And that's really been my journey this year in 2019, which I know has been the story for a lot of other people. So that sort of kicked off in March when I went back to Australia for a visit, and I cleaned out all of my stuff that I had been keeping in storage, and I just got rid of a bunch of crap that was like all of these, memories and things from my childhood that I'd just been taking around from one place to the next, and I just let them go. And it was so symbolic because I felt like I'd really released something in that moment. And then I guess that was that sort of was a symbol for what was to come, which has been all of the work I've been doing for the rest of the year on releasing old family patterns, and I've been exploring things and situations I haven't looked at in a very long time. I've been looking at intergenerational things, and that is a highlight because it's why I feel the way I feel right now, which is I feel really, really good. And it's been because of all of that work I've been doing.
Yeah, it's so much about the internal shifts as well that happen. I think we focus on the external things, but often the internal shifts happen first, and then outside changes too to reflect that. Yeah,
absolutely. So what about you, Ella? What are your personal highlight or highlights for 2019?
So I've got, again, a couple. It's really hard just to pick one. So the first one I want to mention is more of an internal change for me. So I believe it was you that introduced me to Byron Katie, and work really changed. I know we'll look at it later on, my questions, favourite books and that type of thing. But just I think the ability to realise that I'm not my thoughts. I can have control over whether I get stressed about a situation, whether the things affect me, and just becoming more and more aware of the voice in my head that's like telling me I'm not good enough, and all these kind of thoughts that were just going on repeat in my mind and that I wasn't even necessarily aware of. And it's been reflected in situations like I've had quite a lot of jobs this year through like trying to navigate what I want to be doing with my time and testing out different situations and not being afraid to try new things. And through those different learning opportunities, I've been able, the voice would get stronger in certain situations, and found, it's definitely a highlight for me to become more aware of that. I'm so much more self-aware and I guess more present than I was at the beginning of the year. And that's been a big shift for me. And I just feel like it's really helps, especially with my second highlight, which is now that I'm living in London, which has been a goal of mine for quite a few years. And it's one I ironically, or not so ironically, had let go of happening this year. And then right before the end of the year, I ended up moving. So I moved last weekend. And I'm really happy to be here. I've always loved the city. And I'm finally moved out, living on my own. I'm renting in London. So it's a really nice area. And I think trying to let go, my practice at the moment is letting go of the control of knowing where things are going, because so much, it's more fun when you don't know, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also allows you to open up to the possibilities instead of, sticking to the plan. There's so much more out there for all of us than we could even imagine.
Yeah, definitely. And it's quite exciting just to see what's going to happen next and just be open to the change.
Yeah. And also I love that your one of your highlights was that awareness that you've got, because I just believe that is the best foundation that we can all have. And awareness, in my opinion, is abundance. Like when we can be aware of what we're actually receiving and the possibilities out there for us, and just aware of our mind and where it's at and how it's also contributing to the way that we're looking at the world, it allows us to step into abundance. So that's something that I've definitely learned in an even deeper way this year. And I think for a lot of my clients, like this is the same discussion that we're having as we look at our end of year and what we've, created, and so what they've created. And awareness has been something that's been coming up on everyone's celebration list too. So I think that's probably a theme for all of us.
Yeah, and I think your mindset makeover program really makes it so accessible. All this mindset work can be a bit overwhelming, but when I took your program, it just made it so easily digestible, and also so transformative if you really do the work. It is a commitment, like you said, it's a commitment to kind of breaking the mold of society and that fear-based living. And I think commitment perhaps could be my theme for next year.
Yeah, it's and I love that you mentioned commitment, because that's right. Like these internal shifts that we want to make with our beliefs and our mind and our patterns, they will only happen through repetition, and that requires commitment. It's like new habits we're creating, which are those new neural pathways. And so that's why I really loved that in the mindset makeover, I tried to put everything in a way where you could have a plan to use with your mind to help you to keep expanding. And honestly, like every single day to this day, and I will forever be doing this, I am working on my mindset. I'm looking at bringing that awareness, like what am I thinking about? What if I notice myself doing something that's in contrast to where I want to go and the energy I want to show up in, I'm going to take a look at that and see what's there from this place of curiosity, so that I can have the awareness and then therefore bring myself to a place of acceptance, and then choose again and choose something that's even more supportive. So yeah, it's a lifelong practice and work, and it becomes really amazing and empowering because you see that all of the power is in your hands, and it's simply through having that awareness about what's going on inside of our minds.
So true. Yeah, completely agree. So the next question I would like to ask you is, what did you have the most fun creating this year in your business?
Oh my gosh, I feel like I've created so much this year. I was on a creative mission. Actually, the last 3 years, I've just been creating so much. And I now feel that I'm moving into a new phase where I will be creating a lot less, which is exciting and just, where my energy is leading me to. So what I had the most fun creating were all of the things I created this year, and in particular, my Create Your Beautiful Biz. I loved creating all of the trainings for that, and also but actually the most fun is showing up with all of you. Ella, you were in the first round, showing up with everyone throughout I think I've done 3 rounds this year. And getting to know everyone there, their businesses, working on our mindset, working on the practical stuff. I've just loved that. And then I've also adored showing up in the same way for the Mistress Mind, the Menstrual Magic Business Mistress Mind that Ella was also a part of, and also my 12-month mentorship activated, and of course all of my one-to-one clients. And I've just really I've had so much fun analyzing all of the different circumstances I've been helping people with, and then learning so much more about myself and my own business, and then also about how I can serve, and then continually using all of that information I'm getting to then create even better products and services for everyone. So the mindset makeover is included in that. I think it was essential for me to create that so that everybody has all of the basics there. Not that it's that basic, but it's all there in a easy to digest program. And I just feel so satisfied that I have all of the baseline for, what I'm here to support people with. So yeah, that's what I had the most fun creating, but I think things are going to look very different in 2020.
Yeah, there's so much variety. So if anyone's any area of kind of self-development, I think there'll be a program that you'd have that would suit them. And whether that's the style of learning or the topic or the length of the program, you really got the foundations there. And it's really exciting to see what you'll be creating next, because you've got such an amazing base.
Thank you. So what about you? What have you had the most fun creating?
Again, the podcast, I really had, I got quite a high off recording them. I'd always feel really energized when I finished recording, and just found it really enjoyable. I think that's still what I'm trying to hone in on, is what I actually do enjoy. I don't know, depending on the day and obviously where I was in my cycle, things would feel different. So I think that's what I need to practice more, is working with my energy. The process itself, I really enjoyed creating the podcast and getting them out there. It's more of a time management thing for myself, that I felt like maybe I didn't have enough time, which I know is a mindset thing. But yeah, fun is something that I want to increase more of. Again, I also enjoy doing YouTube videos this year. I tried some Instagram live this year. That was another thing I experimented with. So yeah, it's a trial and error process at the moment for me. And I love doing visuals. I do visuals with you, and I enjoy creating those types of things. So the most fun would probably be the podcast.
Well, that's very interesting intelligence, Ella. I feel like that could be a hint for you as you review the year, but also I think that's a great lesson there, and it's something that I also had to learn this year too, that I took an extended break from this podcast, right? And part of me felt really guilty about that, but the other part of me just knew that I needed to take that time for myself as I navigated my transition back to Sydney. And I think you've been on a very similar journey as well, Ella, with starting a new job and moving to London, and there's been so many new things going on, and you've had your coaching course and so many things. And so maybe the podcast wasn't right at that time, but maybe it will be again soon, and that's totally okay.
Yeah, like knowing that it's an option to go back to it when I feel called to.
Absolutely. Okay, so what is your next question?
So I'd love to know what you're most excited about in 2020.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. I've been doing a lot of dreaming, which I love to do. However, the thing that I'm the most excited about is allowing myself to live in the unknown in 2020. So I have a new little boundary for myself, and that is I'm not planning anything more than like a couple of months in advance. So I actually had like my entire year mapped out for 2020, and I was asking myself, like, why don't I feel free? You know, why do I feel like, why am I not excited by this? Because previously that, you know, it did come from a place of inspiration when I created these plans, and I was trying to create a plan so I could spend 4 months of the year not working and go and do, like, I'm doing a yoga teacher training and go and explore other parts of the world. But then I realized that actually simply by planning in and of itself, including all that time for myself, I was limiting my, like, that feeling of freedom. And so I needed to release that desire to plan and allow myself to just, you know, not know. And everything will be okay. I'll still be able to serve my clients. I'll still be able to make money in my business. I'll still be able to do the things that I want to do in terms of travel and the trainings, and just a new, like, next level of trust that it's all going to unfold in, like, the best way for me.
Yeah, I think that's the most exciting way to live. And I love that as a coach that you're advocating letting go of the control, and it's all about releasing the resistance and seeing what flows in. For me, it's also a very similar theme for 2020. I'd like to what January taught me when Teddy passed away is that you can't plan the year, because I thought at the beginning of the year I thought that, like, it was going to look a certain way, and it completely changed in January. And then I had to not reassess, but I just had to let go of, like, knowing what was going to happen and just be accepting of the situation for what it was. And then the things that have happened, I could never have, like, planned or predicted, and I wouldn't have chosen the timeline that it did happen. I wouldn't have maybe chosen, I mean, to me, moving to London in December wouldn't have been, like, the best idea at the time, but it's the way it's happened, and it's ended up being the best timing for everything else that was going on in my life when I started my job. Even things like down to when I went on holiday, it, like, all flowed very easily. And I think if I tried to plan it all, it never would have gone so smoothly. So I'm excited about, again, releasing the more controlling aspects of my personality in 2020, because there's obviously still things that my mind tries to control, but as I practice being more in the present moment, those things don't really matter as much. So whether that was the issues I'd have with food, trying to control that, or even, like, relationships, it's all irrelevant when you are in the moment. That's what I'm excited about in 2020.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Being able to accept what is, and also really appreciate, like, what is as well, where you are, and see the abundance of the situation, see the gift of the situation. I mean, that is where all of the magic is. And if we can't do that, like what I've been talking about a lot recently on social media has been all about, you know, needing to love on where we are right now in our businesses and our results and our financial results. And until we get to that place, then we can't create space for new things and for more opportunities and more abundance to come in, because it's like we're so used to looking for more that we don't realize what we have right now.
Yeah, not judging the moment or ourselves, I think.
Yeah, totally. And I think your that story that you just shared about the start of the year looking very different for you, and then going through the loss of Teddy, and then being where you are today and it happening on a completely different timeline, is such a great lesson for all of us, and reminder for all of us that, you know, there's always a bigger plan. And I think like whatever our mind thinks is going to happen, like not to be so fixated on it happening in that way, because there's so much outside of our control. And it's just like, if we could release that resistance, as you said, in the moment, and if we could release the plan, I feel like a lot of us would have so much more peace instantly.
You're not trying to do things on a timeline, or feeling like you have to be in a certain place because you're this age, or leading on from this kind of excitement, I'd love to know what your most dominant emotions were in 2019.
Oh my gosh. Okay. What are my most dominant emotions? Resistance has been one of them for sure throughout the year, and that's because I've been up-leveling in major ways. So resistance has been by my side every step of the way. I think my resistance emotional state has probably eased up more over the last maybe month, like since I've been in Cambodia. But otherwise for the rest of the year, it's been like by my side very strongly. And at the same time, I feel like I've also felt really, really grateful, probably more than ever before. Like that's where I find my comfort. So every time I feel that resistance, I keep returning back to gratitude and feeling that throughout my body. And I do so many meditations and things with all my clients focused on gratitude, because I really feel like that's where the magic is, and it just gives me like so much peace. So gratitude has been really important. And then I'm trying to think of what other emotion, because there's definitely something there. And I feel like maybe it's a mix between focused or determined and inspired. So actually, I feel like focused has probably been the more dominant emotion. I've been so focused this year, like just on creating all of the things I wanted to create and moving forward in the way that I wanted to move forward. Like I really wanted to have all of these different programs rolled out. I really wanted to have, I was focused on the move I was making. I was focused on trying to figure out what the year was going to look like after the move. And so I don't know if we'll talk about this later, but that actually feeds into one of my, like something I've really realized about myself, is that my focus and my devotion and dedication and commitment can sometimes be like almost superhuman. It's like one of my superpowers. But I've realized that also like all of our gifts, it can also be limiting for me. So my focus like tipped to another extreme where I became too focused. And I think I mentioned this in one of my last episodes. It became too focused that suddenly I had created this identity for myself and this plan for myself that then felt like it was restricting me in so many ways. And then I almost had to break free from my own focus and get that balance back in my life with being more open to the possibilities. So it's such a fascinating learning in life, because we're always dancing on like the edge of something where we need it, but then we don't need it too much. And so it's that, finding that balance all the time.
Yeah, it's all about the balance. That's so interesting. And I'm glad you shared that resistance was part of your journey this year. And it's all, the emotions, they should be up and down. It shouldn't be all one plain sailing, positive unicorn emotion throughout the year. I think that's how I used to feel it should look. I should always be in this state of like absolute joy and gratitude. And I'm sure some people are, but for me, it's been more up and down as well. For me personally, I think my main emotions year was, I want to say, overwhelming with everything going on. But then also that would kind of oscillate between that and excitement for what's to come. Like I said, the unknown and the overwhelmment and like anxiety would always be there. But then it'd be my practice of whether it's meditating or just walking in nature, the things I do that bring me back to that kind of more peaceful, more grounded state. So yeah, the dominant emotions I'm hoping will shift a bit. And also an interesting one that I discovered that I didn't realize how much I felt was guilt. And this came up in a session I had with Danny, who's part of the community, and she's a BNE practitioner. And the feeling of guilt has come up in a few areas of my life. And I wasn't really aware that the amazing thing about BNE is that you're not really aware of these subconscious patterns that you have playing out in your life. And guilt was one related to like family and just myself, and it's something that I'm still exploring and kind of uncovering, but I know it's impacted, whether it's friendships, feeling guilty for saying no to things, setting boundaries, even things like eating what I want to eat without feeling guilty. And just it's quite interesting that it can be such a dominant emotion, but we're not always maybe aware of it in our lives.
And that's the beautiful thing about modalities like BNE, because a lot of these emotions, you know, we've inherited, and so there's so much a part of like everything we can remember that we don't realize that they are a part of who we are and like who we are right now, and it's like they've become part of our identity, so we don't even notice them.
Yes, exactly. And I was listening to your money masterclass yesterday, and you were explaining how our money story, our money mindset is often passed down from your family. And I know it's so true with me, and it's something that it's not a goal, but it's obviously something that I'd like to improve on, as I'm sure most people would. So coming from that place of feeling abundant right now, it's definitely a good start. Yeah.
And I think really if we all dig in deeper to the resistance that we're feeling, you'll find it, you know, manifests in other emotions. Like for me, the resistance throughout the year, especially the first maybe quarter, maybe a bit longer than that actually, it was showing up in overwhelm and frustration and confusion, right? But then if I dig beneath that resistance and dig beneath those emotions, what I would find would always, for me, it's shame. Like it always comes back to shame. And so the difference between shame and guilt, shame is when you think there's something wrong with you, and guilt is when you think you're doing something wrong. And they're definitely linked. But once you're able to witness your shame and allow yourself to experience it, or the guilt even, it allows you to choose thoughts that are more supportive of how you actually want to feel, and release yourself from the guilt and from the shame. But it's going to come up again because those patterns are so ingrained in our minds. So it's like, I think, like you mentioned, a lot of us think that we need to always be in the joy and we need to be in all of the positive emotion. And yes, we want to support ourselves as much as we can to be in positively charged emotions, but part of the human experience is the resistance, is the fear, is the guilt and shame. And if you can allow yourself to really feel and really experience those emotions as they come up, you move through them so much quicker. And if that's what we're all resisting, like really resisting feeling that way, and we allow ourselves to feel that way, then that's when I feel that we really are fearless, because we're willing to feel that uncomfortable and painful emotion, which is a physical sensation in our body, which is just always really comforting for me to remind myself of that.
Yeah, there's so much to be said for just sitting there and like feeling what you're feeling and not buffering, which is, I think, including myself, what the majority of society do. I mean, that's why chocolate exists, that's why cigarettes exist, and alcohol and all these things. And it's not making us feel better, but we think it does in the moment. But then it's also for me not being hard on myself when I do those things, but I'm still aware
Yes.
that it's not maybe what I need in the moment, but it's gradual process.
Yeah, and let me just say, like, one of the ways I like to buffer is to overwork, and that's a pattern I can recognize throughout my entire life. So one of the things that I really discovered about myself this year, as I noticed myself going back into overworking patterns, was that if I needed to disrupt that pattern and allow myself just to do nothing, like particularly with my transition back to Sydney, and I'll expect less of myself. And I think that's so important, because the way that we buffer and we escape our emotions shows up differently for everyone. So you've got to, and it can change as well. Like, I used to use alcohol, and sometimes I use food, and sometimes it's like watching Love Island and or The Bachelor, and so you've just got to, like, it's fine to buffer. Like, that's what we do sometimes, but whatever we're escaping, we're not going to be able to transcend it until we bring awareness to what it is and feel it.
Yeah. Definitely. So a bit of a more light-hearted question. I'd love to know, how many countries did you visit this year?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I visited Cambodia, England, Wales, which I'm sort of putting in two categories, even though technically they're the same, but for me they're different. Ireland, Australia, Norway, Indonesia, and France. So that's 8. I think there's 8 of them, but I've been on like probably 20 trips this year. So different cities within those locations. Like, I took myself on a trip to the south of France in somewhere in the middle of the year. Yep, I just went for a week by myself to Antibes and visited Nice. But I began the year in Lyon and with Lou after we went skiing, but that was 2018, the skiing part. So, yeah, I've been to a number of different places like within those countries, and it's amazing, right? Because you just forget all of the ground you've traveled throughout the year, and then as you go back and you just look at your calendar and you write all this stuff down, you think, whoa, my year has been so rich of so many experiences.
No, I mean, you've definitely visited so many places. I'm always like, oh, where's Leticia off to now?
Yeah, and actually this year I felt like, I hadn't really been to many places, and but yeah, as I reviewed it, I have. And, like one of those as well, like I went to Melbourne 3 times.
Yeah.
So it's I think this is just, it's just symbolic of, like, even if it's not going to another country, if you explore like all of the different experiences you've had, like it could be workshops you've attended, trainings you've attended, like online things you've attended, times you've met with your friends, and then that sparks, like if you go through your photos and then you've got a photo of you at at lunch together or whatever, and then you remember like this amazing conversation you had. Like, some of my most cherished memories this year are the voice messages I've left either my clients or and my friends, and the conversations I've had like on Skype with my mom and with Lou about all of the things I've been learning. Like, I remember one with you, Ella, when I was telling you about Byron Katie and that work. That was when I was in Antibes, and I'd been listening to Eckhart Tolle, the 10 chapters discussed on Oprah's podcast. Yeah, and then that led me to Byron Katie's episode, and I was already familiar with her work and loved it. And from when I think 2015, when I was delving into Brooke Castillo's work, Byron Katie is a huge influence on Brooke Castillo's work and the model that she uses, and I just loved it. Like, learning about loving what is, like, really just changed things for me. And then having that conversation with you and talking about that was also like, that's a highlight for me throughout the year. That realization and just being able to voice that was, like a really special moment.
So for me, I only visited 2 countries this year, Copenhagen and Crete. I think it was just 2. So yeah, I went to Crete, which was a lovely family relaxing holiday, and had the best time, and could very much do with the sun now. But that was much needed, and that's when the kind of job that I'm in now flowed in, because I guess I was relaxed and allowing and happy. And then Copenhagen with my friend, which was so fun. That was like a little city break, so had the best of both, I suppose. And apart from that, just been going for just meeting friends for coffees. I really love that, and I love coffee, and to me it's just such a cozy, fun thing to do. So I've done a lot of that, with a lot of coffee catch-ups, coffee dates, and I'm looking forward to doing more of that in 2020. And Bali is on the list for next year. I will be going. It's going to happen.
Yep. It sure will.
So I'd love to know next, what did you learn about yourself this year? I know you touched on it before, maybe the overworking, that you can overwork a bit too much, but I'd love to know if you learned anything else that you'd like to share about yourself.
Yeah, I definitely learned that that focus that I was talking about before, like the balance, where it's part of my superpowers, but it's also something that really I can use to limit my freedom, but also to be really hard on myself. Like sometimes when I'm in that really focused mode and I just want to create and I want to get these things done and it's what I love and I'm feeling in the flow and all of these things, I can easily then move into like neglecting my body and other needs that I need in that moment. So really being aware that that is my tendency, and that even though I've done all of this work, it's still something that's going to show up and in sneaky ways, like, hey, but this is what I love doing, and this is what I'm working towards, and all of that. It's still something that there has to be a balance with it. So that has been really powerful because it's led me to creating like big changes in how I'm showing up. Like for 2020, I am just simplifying like so much in how I show up in my business and in my life. It's a process of letting go, and I'm already starting to do that now because I've created all of these things, but now I need to let go. And actually, Ella, that brings me to something that I didn't mention at the top, which one of my highlights as well is, of course, bringing you onto my team. That was a huge thing for me to, make that commitment. And also, to have that as to allow myself to be supported in that way, because I'm someone who's so used to wanting to do everything herself. And that was something I was very proud of. And so, of course, we can't do everything ourselves, and I certainly can't have the business that I want, which is something really huge, without having support. And so being able to work with you, and you've just been able to help me in so many ways, and also for you to be someone that I've had a relationship with before. You've been one of my clients in so many different ways, and it's just flowed in such a magical way that I could never have ever planned. But I'm so grateful, so grateful.
Yeah, I was thinking earlier, I wanted to mention that was one of my highlights of the year, is working with you, because it's an area that I'm so interested in. Obviously, I loved your content before I even worked with you. So kind of fusing together what I enjoy doing, like creating content, community sharing, and that type of thing, to be able to work with you has been absolutely one of my highlights of the year. And I'm excited to see what we create together in 2020.
Me too, for sure. And what about you, Ella? What has been one of your key learnings?
I think my key learning would be that I was always trying to rush everything, like rushing to the end, and there's no need to rush, that everything is going to happen in its right timing, in its own timing. So even things like, even when it came to cooking, I'd always be like putting things on a high heat, trying to get to the end and not actually enjoying the journey, enjoying the process. And I just very heavy-handed with things. And I think it's been a big realization about myself. So again, it's leading into that feminine energy, trying to lessen the masculine side. And so I learned that about myself. And I think I also learned that I'm stronger than I think I am. Again, going back to like Teddy and everything that happened, I feel like I'm quite proud of myself for how I dealt with it and how I managed to focus on not moving on, but accepting the situation and focusing on the freedom that I now had in my life. And I learned that I can, I guess, without being dramatic, like get through anything. Like the worst, everything's only temporary. Like things shift, things change, and I know he's not gone. He's still around here watching over me. But you can get through anything, even no matter where you are. I think there's always something that can be done. There's always another step, another way of looking at things, another perspective. Is it the Course in Miracles? They say a shift in perception is a change from fear to love. So that's what I try and focus on.
Yes, I love that. I love A Course in Miracles. And yeah, that definitely is the miracle for sure. I just think that everything comes back to our ability to be able to do that. Like all of the answers lead back to what's happening in our minds, and we have the choice of how we look at what's happening.
So I'd love to know what your Christmas day will look like this year in Cambodia.
So my Christmas this year is going to look like probably traveling on Christmas Day to Malaysia. I'm actually going away tomorrow for 5 days to an island here in Cambodia. It's called Koh Rong. And then I am going to, and then I have 2 days back here in Cambodia, and then I leave on Christmas Day to fly to Malaysia. So I think we'll be in Kuala Lumpur, and I don't know what the day is going to look like yet, because like literally we just booked our trip for this week.
It's so exciting.
Today. And hopefully we'll book Malaysia tonight, but I don't know, we might book it next week. What about you?
So for me, it will be quite low key. I want it to be a very relaxing Christmas. So I'll be at home with my mum and dad, and I'll go home for a few days. So Christmas Eve, I'll get home, I think. And then I'm planning on going for a few drinks with my friends in Oxford. And then Christmas Day itself will be quite a quiet, low-key affair. I'll probably stay in my red polka dot pajamas the whole day. And we'll have a nice Christmas lunch and probably just sit on the sofa and chill, really, because I've been looking forward to doing that for a long time. And then I'll be back. I think I'll travel back on Boxing Day to London. So hopefully the trains won't be too busy.
Oh, that sounds like a gorgeous day. And I think it's, Christmas is great because we have our families round or friends or however it is that you spend Christmas. But it's also nice to just like soak up the magic and be with yourself as well. And I think sometimes it's easy to feel like to end the Christmas period and just feel really drained because we've forgotten about ourselves in the process. So, taking that time for yourself to just like chill out and like create a little ceremony for the year and for all that you've experienced, and then opening up and being ready for your next chapter. I really love to do those sorts of things on Christmas. And I just say that, Ella, because I've spent the last 4 Christmases not with family. Like Lou and I have lived abroad, so we've typically spent it by ourselves. And then usually on Christmas Day or on New Year's Eve or whatever, I've just been literally going through like what's my vision for the year, and also just like being really grateful for the year that has been as well.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'm gonna implement that practice. What do you want for Christmas this year?
So Lou and I were having this conversation and we're like, oh, we're just not going to get we're not going to get each other anything this year, right? And I was like, yeah, that's great. And then, well, we are going to go to this, we might do an experience together, potentially, but we don't know what that is yet. But what I've decided that I actually do want today is that I would like some books, and that really is what I ask for every year. And really that looks like I just go and buy all of the books for myself and then don't feel guilty about it. But there are so many topics I want to read this year. Like, for instance, I want to get lots of different books from women of color authors. That's a really big thing for me this year. I'm exploring a number of books that have been recommended from Aboriginal writers, which is something I'm at the moment reconnecting and learning a lot more about my Aboriginal heritage and family line, and exploring that and working through a lot of different issues that have come up for me and my family through some of the experiences that we've had and shared. And then I'm also looking at and really interested in intergenerational trauma specifically, and, you know, as I explore all of this. So there's so many books that I want to read. Plus, I'm preparing for my menstruality leadership training, which is coming up in 2020, and also my women's self-care yoga training, which is also coming up. And there's a whole reading list for both of them.
It's going to be a year of studying again for you.
It will be, yes. So it's been good to have a year off. And what about you, Ella?
So mine is a bit less intellectual. I've asked for one book. I want A Course in Miracles Made Easy by Alan Cohen, which I can't remember who I saw recommended it, but I've wanted to dive into A Course in Miracles, but I've just not had the time with the length of the book.
Yeah, it's huge.
So I'm going to read that. I'm trying to kind of consume less content, so I think one book will do me for now. And then some skincare and some room bits. That's pretty much what I wanted. Like, my biggest wish this Christmas, I think, is just to have a calm couple of days at home, just like relaxing, sitting by a TV, doing nothing. That's my gonna be my main present, I think, and I'm happy with that.
Yeah, that's the best gift, isn't there? It's great when you get to a point where it's like, you know what, I actually don't think there's really anything that I truly want or need, and you know, the thing that I actually really want is just to have some time to myself. And, you know, you are your greatest company. I think that's a really great place to be.
It's a sign of growing up, I suppose. I mean, if someone bought me a trip to Bali, I wouldn't say no.
Yeah, of course.
So you said you're getting some books this year for Christmas. Do you have a particular one that really helped with your business this year? Like, book written by a coach or someone else completely out of the industry that you found really... I think I know what you might say, but I want to hear what your answer is first.
It's Becoming by Michelle Obama. That is my favorite book I read this year.
I knew it.
And I read it at the start of the year when I was in Lyon. I read that on the 1st of January in Lyon. I was reading it on, you know, a couple of days before that. And I read it all in just a couple of days, which is rare for me because I actually physically read the book, not just listened to it on Audible. And it just inspired me so much and led to so many like really exciting decisions I made for myself in my business this year. And the reason I love it is just, you know, like Michelle comes from a legal background like me, and she wanted to do something more that made a difference. And I just felt like in everything she was talking about with both her and Barack Obama, I read his book, well, one of his books as well, which was really great. I just felt like, wow, these, you know, I just felt so heard, and I left feeling so activated as well to like do more. And yeah, that's really what led me to offering a lot of the scholarships I've offered this year. And I've been thinking about, you know, different ways to contribute to like my community and to have that social responsibility arm of my business. And so these are things that I'm also really excited to like roll out in 2020 as they all come to fruition too. What about you, Ella?
So I think it would have to be Byron Katie's A Mind at Home with Itself, because again, going back to the mindset work, I think that really has an impact on everything. And for me, it was about the book really broke down into different subjects, different areas of your life. And just like, for example, putting the podcast out there, not like questioning it, not letting my mind get in the way of creating drama and that type of thing. So yeah, I went back to it quite a few times this year and reread certain passages and found it really, really helpful in all areas of my life, but yeah, particularly for business.
I'll have to check that out.
What was your favorite podcast of the year?
So podcasts, haven't been very consistent in listening to any podcast this year. I had like periods where I'd have a favorite, but I was not consuming as much podcasts. I wasn't consuming like much in general this year. However, recently I have discovered Sophia Bush's Work in Progress, and I'm literally so addicted to it. I want to listen to every single episode. I've literally started from the first episode and have been making my way through all of them. And I just feel so lit up because it's all about social responsibility. It's about getting involved in like all of the issues of our world, taking responsibility for them, being activated socially and really taking ownership for what's going on in the world and getting involved. And so I've just found them super empowering, and I'm really excited to see what I create as a result of all of that inspiration. So I'm so grateful for that podcast. Yeah. What about you, Ella?
So my favorite podcast of the year, I'd say that would have to be, I've always really loved Jess Lively's podcast, The Lively Show. And I continue to listen to that throughout the year. I'd say that's the one, along with yours, that I'd get most excited about and would like have to listen to on the day it was released. Otherwise, I really enjoy listening to the Brooke Castillo, the Life Coach School. Byron Katie's even got some podcast episodes that I dived into. And was it Eckhart Tolle's The Oprah series? That was the beginning of the year, I think, like January time. So I really enjoyed listening to that series. Again, haven't been listening to too many, but those are my key standouts of the year, I think.
Yeah. And a lot of those I also have tuned into here and there as well. And like Brooke's The Life Coach School podcast is still one of my favorites. If there's an episode on business, I will be listening to it for sure. And also on lots of the mindset things like outside of business too. I really feel like her model has helped me so much in my life, and I'm really understanding it in like a much deeper way today. And there's just so much depth to that model. So yeah, it's really fascinating.
Cool. I'd love to know if you set any New Year's resolutions. I know you said before you were letting go of the control and the goals, but do you have a rough idea of what you want to achieve next year?
So usually I set pretty specific intentions and goals for the year, and I take myself through I have done some of this process already. I take myself through a lengthy process. However, the real resolution for myself for this year is freedom, and freeing myself from so many like limitations that I've realized I've been putting on myself. And so I guess moving forward, that's probably my word for the year, freedom. And so I've got lots of ideas about what might happen, but I feel really unattached to everything. Like, for instance, we might end up in the US, we might end up in Geneva, we might end up in Sydney, we might end up in London. There's so many, and also I might end up in Bali. There's so many different locations on the cards. There's so many different projects. Like, I've got a product that I want to be launching. There's a book that I want to write. There's a new business on the cards, but I'm also not attached to any of these things. So I'm just going to let them unfold as they need.
Yeah, I love that. Allow the unfolding.
Yeah. What about you?
So for me, I would love to, again, keep releasing the control. And I think my resolution is, I think it's the theme of acceptance, one that you were talking about earlier. So being more accepting of myself, than not limiting like myself to like how I look physically, like knowing that I'm more than that, and not being so attached to whether it's my weight or appearance, and just all these labels that I think we get caught up in, and just going back to like just reconnecting with like my soul, I think, and just being unapologetically myself is, I'm sure will help with all areas of my life. So that's going to be my main focus.
I love that focus. Being unapologetically you. So good.
And leading on from that, you discussed the idea of self-acceptance in your like recent podcast episode. So someone like me that maybe hasn't always been the most accepting of themselves, and where do you like begin on this journey of self-acceptance?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I feel like with self-acceptance, first of all, it's putting down on paper like where you even think you are right now. So if you were asking yourself like, okay, well, what do I need to accept about myself? And so you just sat there and free write all of the things that you would need to accept about yourself. Like if you're being like really honest, even though what you write down, it doesn't mean it's going to be true, but put down all of the judgment on paper as well, right? Like put it down so you can see what you're thinking about yourself, and come to a place of acceptance with those thoughts, like accepting that, yeah, this is how I'm thinking, this is what's in my head, and that's okay. What we usually do is then beat ourselves up, shame ourselves, or feel guilty for what is in our minds. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to go through that. But we do want to put it all out on paper so that you can really see what is going on in your mind, and then shift it to looking at these circumstances that you think you're living in, and shift it to like, what really are the facts of this situation? Like what is the truth of this situation, and pulling out all of the hyperbole, all of the opinion, and taking just the neutral facts of the situation. Like, for instance, this is my bank account balance. This is how much money I've made year to date. This is how much I weigh. This is where my health is at. These are the relationships I have in my life. These are the experiences I've had. These are the thoughts that are in my mind. And bringing yourself to a place of acceptance about those things, and releasing all of the other like hyperbole that we create about the facts of the situation, because that hyperbole is what leads to unsupportive or supportive emotional states, and also like the thoughts that we think that fuel that emotional state. So that's my piece of advice there. And then once you get yourself to a place of acceptance with the facts, then you allow yourself to shift the needle even more to coming to a place of appreciation for what you have, which is where the magic happens.
Yeah, I'm taking all that in. Being okay in the present moment, not beating yourself up. Yeah, it really helps. Thank you. I'd love to know if you've got any predictions about the way the coaching industry could move in 2020, because so many people coaching now, and while I believe there's space for everyone, community over competition and all that, I'd love to know with like social media or just the way people are communicating, if you can see any like trends or anything you feel like might change in 2020.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know about if this is the coaching industry in general, but it will affect the coaching industry. But I feel that there is definitely more of a desire for in-person connection. And so perhaps we'll see people maybe relying on social media less, and looking for spaces where we can connect with like-hearted people and have meaningful conversations. So I think that's definitely going to be a trend. But otherwise, I feel like there will be more and more people who are called to step up for this work as coaches. and there's more than enough space for all of us, and there's so many people who need our help. I really believe that everybody can use a coach. And so with that, I think that we have to hold ourselves to a really high standard about like really doing the inner work, looking at where we're contributing to the problems that we see like outside of our, little bubbles that we live in, and really asking ourselves as individuals to step up and to just really take more interest in this, in our social responsibility. So I think that that's going to be a theme, and I think as coaches, it's in our interest and it's our responsibility to step up in those areas too.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the way it's heading, and I also think quality over quantity is going to be a big theme, where it's not like posting for the sake of posting. It's people actually taking the time to connect with more meaningful posts, and whether that's longer captions or just, I think more thoughts going into each post rather than like quantity for the sake of posting.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And I think that we're all realizing that we can actually, create less content, but with more quality, and that's totally fine. Everyone's going to be okay.
So the last thing I would love to know for today is, what are your top tips for keeping a balanced mind and body during the festive period? Because I know people can feel a bit overwhelmed, a bit stressed. There's a lot more like sugar and alcohol and parties and things happening. How do you personally stay balanced?
I think my answer here is presence. Like doing what you can to be like in your own energy and to be really present in all of the situations you find yourself. And I think like a lot of you in my community like are empaths, and so we feel the intensity of like all of these heightened emotions at this time, and that can be so much to take on. And so we feel really tired. Like I feel tired right now, and I felt tired quite a lot this month, and I feel like it's from the environment. So if you can come back to your own energy and be really present in each situation and slow down rather than speed up, which is what we're being called to do through all of the social situations that are going on and like all of the places we need to show up. If you can exercise your boundaries in this time and really slow down to appreciate and savor the moment and be really present with yourself, make sure you know what you need, you're in tune with your body and what it needs. I think that is the best way to be able to find that balance in the first place. And I think it's what we all that's what we lose during the holidays. It is that present. So yeah, that's my answer for that one.
Yeah, I love that. And it's the ability to slow down, just take a breath, and then you can approach everything with a clearer mind.
Yeah, and enjoy it.
Thank you for sharing. That's everything that I wanted to ask you today. So thank you for answering those questions for me.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for asking all these interesting questions. It's been so fun to chat with you and to discuss both of our insights from the year. So thank you for showing up and being vulnerable with your answers as well. And also for coming on the podcast again and having this fun conversation and interviewing me. I always enjoy it so much. And yeah, thank you also for just being such an important part of my community and my business, and also this podcast. The podcast wouldn't be happening without Ella. So thank you so much, Ella, for everything this year.
Oh, thank you so much too, and for all the work that you do and everything you're creating in the world. It's helped me immensely. I know it's helped many of the listeners too. So I want to thank you as well. And I'm always happy to come on the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, my love. So there you have it, my beautiful friends. I hope you enjoyed this conversation between Ella and I as we explored our year in review and what we're excited for in 2020. There are so many takeaways to this episode, so I'll let you all digest what you've just learned, and we'll be sure to expand on some of these ideas and concepts in the new year. So I just want to leave you all with a little idea as you step into Christmas and the holidays, and just remind you that tying up the end of the year is also about celebrating yourself. So if you want to bring in a little ritual for yourself over the next week or so where you just celebrate everything that you have created and all the awareness that you've gotten through doing your year in review, create a ritual for yourself to really symbolically celebrate and release this year, and then call in what is to come for your beautiful self and businesses in 2020. Follow your heart, follow your curiosity, allow yourself to create your own ritual. Just do something, even if it's just for 5 minutes, that's really intentional to set the tone for this new year that is to come. And finally, if you would love to invest in any of the programs or courses that Ella and I have mentioned throughout this episode, for example, the Mindset Makeover, just head to www.leticiaringe.com/mindset makeover. It's for you if you would like to understand and have the tools to coach yourself and up-level, transform, and understand your mind across all areas of your life and business. And then if you would love to get started in business and you'd love to create a solid foundation for yourself in business, check out my program, Create Your Beautiful Biz, at leticiaringe.com/create your beautiful biz. Enrollment for that program will be opening up in 2020. And if you would love to take things to the next level in your life and in particular in your beautiful business, I also invite you to check out my one-to-one coaching program, which is starting in just a couple of weeks. This is the last opportunity to sign up for a consult call with me to discuss how I can support you in your business in 2020 as you take that business and your life to your next level. So if you'd love to know more about working with me one-to-one in this really beautiful, holistic way, please go to leticiaringe.com/coaching. All right, everybody, I will see you in our next episode. Merry Christmas, and I hope you have a beautiful time however and wherever you are in the world over the next week or so. Bye. Hey, if you're ready to create your very own purpose-driven business too, I invite you to check out my online program, Create Your Beautiful Biz. You'll learn how to create a business that allows you to make your difference and thrive using my signature feminine essence framework. Just head over to www.leticiaringe.com/CYBB. Let's make creating a business beautiful. I'll see you there.